oftentimes we need that sort of renewal, or we need it to be presented in a different context. And that's what I think a lot of it is simply relearning what we already know and applying it in a new context to where we are in life.
Welcome to The Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Conscious Investor, welcome back. If you are watching on YouTube, you already know that there is a VIP guest in the studio with me today. And if you are listening, well, you're just going to have to wait just a moment until I introduce that VIP guest. I'm giving you a spoiler. It is a repeat guest and the most important person in my life. But before we do that, before we jump into 3 reasons why your husband needs to get away, which is a really important topic, I wanted to just do a super shout out. I just got this amazing, and can I borrow that phone real fast? I just got an amazing new review over on the Conscious Investor podcast. And I want to do a shout out to Nate 0073, which, by the way, if 73 is when you're born, 70s were a great time to be born. And I want to let you guys know, it's wind in my sails. I appreciate the time that you take. It doesn't take long over on Apple. It takes probably 60 seconds to leave a written review, but it does so much in helping support the podcast and helping the podcast reach others. So anyway, Nate says, such a joy to listen to Julie. Julie's podcast is great to listen to. Her conversations with guests are enlightening and deeply connected to the guests' passions in investing and her genuine encouragement. And I just want you to know, I appreciate the time you took, Nate. High fives to you. And if you haven't already left an honest rating and review, please make sure you head over to wherever you are enjoying this content. And also, sharing really truly is caring. There are some other podcasts that always say, the way you can show the most support is by sharing the episode. So if this has value to you, please make sure that you are sharing it with others. One more reminder, announcement, however you want to call it. And I hate to do this because I love evergreen content, but I do want to do a shout out also for the Conscious Investor Growth Day that will be taking place on March 18th at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. It is a 1-day event. It is just, oh my gosh, it's just jam-packed with powerful speakers from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. It is just go, 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 and so powerful. So if you live in proximity, so my Montana friends, my Eastern Washington friends, my Idaho friends, even if you're down in Boise, that's like an hour-long flight or a longer drive. Or if you are a friend and you live on the East Coast or down south in the, South, wherever you are also welcome to come. It's a beautiful place to visit, great tax write-off, and it's a 1-day event. So lots of time to play in between and to just sit with all the knowledge that you gain throughout that day. Okay, it's time. I got to let you know for the listeners, because you can't see that my husband is in the house on the show with me once again. And this is a direct result of a comment that was made, something actually Steve and I have been talking about, as well as a comment that was made in the private Conscious Investor Facebook group. Now, you might not like Facebook. I get that. But those groups, those private groups are really powerful. And one of the comments was, hey, we would love to hear more about, Steve and Julie and what's going on and family life and marriage life and all of that. And we just had this really powerful experience recently. And I asked Steve, hey, would you mind coming on the Conscious Investor podcast and having this discussion for, the listeners, because we think this will serve everybody so well. All right. Enough of me. Honey, welcome back to the show.
Happy to be here, dear.
All right. Now, since Steve's not in the recording studio all the time, I'm just going to do that friendly reminder. Really project that voice, honey.
Will do.
Okay. So we're talking today about 3 reasons your husband needs to get away.
Yeah.
Wow. How did this come about? Let's work on that. Let's talk about the backstory here.
How did it come about? I don't really remember. It's sort of been this ongoing thing. Like, you've always been a very supportive wife, which I very much appreciate. I have a tendency of not wanting to go do things by myself or things that I want to do because I feel like I'm being selfish. And for too many years, you've encouraged me to do that, and I always come up with an excuse or a reason. I feel like it was always a reason, but
A reasonable excuse,
a
maybe?
reasonable excuse. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to justify things in our minds, and until we actually do it, it was a reason, and then it became an excuse, if that makes sense. So you encouraged me to do it, and I did it. So I went away.
Well, okay, we're
It's
gonna
probably nice for you too.
we're gonna back that up for a moment and say, over the last, our oldest child, our awesome son is 14 years old now. And so somewhere, maybe even prior to him being born, I'd encourage you, like, go get lost in the woods, go fishing, go get lost in the woods. Not like get lost, like I hope a bear eats you, get lost, like, but like go explore and have that adventure. You read a book recently, Wild at Heart.
Yeah, it's been a while. But one of the things that really stood out in there is that men, I mean, the book is directed towards men, and men and women are different. Shocker. But one of the things that really stood out is that men need an element of danger, and danger and adventure, I think, can in a lot of senses be used interchangeably here. But like, maybe it's an adventure to go walking through the woods. I don't know, just a little bit of danger, a little bit of adventure. And most men, especially I would say married men, married men who have families and obligations and careers, that element just becomes sorely lacking in their lives. And reading the book, it just reminded me that like, I used to do those things, whether it's by myself or with a group of friends. We were off doing things that did have an element of danger to them. And I don't have that anymore, and again, it's an excuse or a reason, whatever it is, but we justify not doing it because we don't want to be selfish. We need to be home for the family. We need to make sure that we're tending to our business obligations. And the list goes on and on and on. So
for 14 years, you made this.
14 years.
Yeah, or maybe a little longer. You had this, quote, we'll call it a reasonable excuse to not maintain that. Again, can I throw onto that list of reasonable excuses is, I think at one point, especially when the kids were little, there were a couple that you had, and that was, you really wanted to be there to support me as a mom because the kids were young, and that's a very energetically demanding time. Different now that they're teenagers, but you were very aware of, you wanted to make sure that I had support. So that was really nice. And then I think you also wanted to make sure especially when they were younger, I don't know what changes as they get older, but when they were younger, you were definitely like, I can't get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. I need to make sure that I am physically well, competent, and capable to be able to provide and take care of my family.
Yeah. I mean, all the above. I mean, it feels, well, one, I mean, it takes effort to go and do anything with your family. And it seems like it'd be a lot easier to do it on your own, but it's not, because at least for me, and I'm not a snowflake, I'm sure how I feel is how a lot of people feel. There's this sense of, well, I'm taking off and I'm leaving everyone else behind, and I'm doing this for me, and there's no other, purpose behind it other than just a selfish pursuit or whatever the reason or excuse is. And well, there is value in doing that. I mean, sure, I guess if you're just wasting your time doing nothing, it's like, well, don't waste your time doing nothing. But it was an eye-opening experience and something I plan on doing again regularly.
So leading into this, there are a few things that led into you going away, and I honestly wanted to title this podcast episode. I threw it out there, but I really appreciate that Steve has such a good heart to make sure that, even because I'll throw myself under the bus. I'm like, wow, that would be a total clickbait, like the time I threw my husband, told my husband to go get lost or to get, lose. And I love that you're just so supportive of like, no, we don't ever want to make people think anything ill in their marriages. And I appreciate that. One thing that you have allowed me space to do over the years is for me to participate in masterminds and events, even 10 years ago when I was a part of a writers guild, and I would go to writing retreats with that guild and such. And so like you've always supported me in taking that time. And as a female, as a, just part of the human dynamics of being female centric is like, I can enjoy and grow in that community of being around the other women. And that's rejuvenating. And over the past year, I've spent a day each quarter going away with two, this last time 3 of my closest growth friends. And it's just catapulted all of us in our journeys. It's been so powerful to take that day away. So that would be like the equivalent of what's taking place in my world, and seeing how much that supported me and knowing the personal growth that you have been doing over the last, years, but especially this past year. We finally got to a point and I just said, you need to go away. And it wasn't you need, and we told the kids, we included the kids in this conversation because we don't want them to think that there's anything wrong. And so it was like, hey, you need to go away. I don't want to get rid of you. It's that you're at this point where you need to go and incubate on your own and just participate in this like little cocoon type experience. And you were resistant for all the reasons that we stated. Let's talk. It was an entire week-long conversation. I don't know if any of you married couples have had those conversations that last for a week. But
it feels like it was more than a week.
Let's talk about it, because there could be some wives like me listening that are very much encouraging their husbands to take this time. And there are husbands that might actually want their wives to go take this time with their girlfriends or alone. And by the way, I also like to be alone. Yeah, let's just talk about some of the polls during that week.
Well, first off, ladies out there, whether you're married or have a significant other, encourage them to take off by themselves. I mean, Julie's heard me say this a bunch here lately, but you always hear the story of, the guy whose wife doesn't want him going off and fishing or playing golf and all this kind of stuff. Like, oh, you're doing that again. You never spend time. There's a balance. And guys, if you're always taking off to sort of get away, well, that's something you need to dive into a lot deeper, because you shouldn't be wanting to escape your family. And for me, on the flip side, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there like this who don't want to get away because they feel like they're being selfish or, self-centered, whatever it is. And so by doing so, it put me in a different environment. First off, I went to a hotel, a couple hours away.
Can we talk about that week though? Because we had, can you see we're even,
well,
but during that week, how did I wanted initially, I'm like, I don't care where you go. I don't care where you go. I just want you to go away. And you had something set in your mind.
Oh, I had something set in my mind. And then I saw the forecast. I was like, never mind on that. Yeah, it was the coldest week of the year. I was going to just go take off into the woods, and it was supposed to get down to like -22, which it did get down to -22.
It did.
So anyway, so
where you wanted to go.
Put the kibosh on that real quick.
So you kind of had these expectations. I'm going to go have this fishing adventure. I'm going to go like the good old days, sleep in the back of my my pick 'em up truck, as he likes to say, and that's what I'm going to do. And because that expectation wasn't fitting because of the weather, I did encourage you. I'm like, you don't have to go east towards Montana. I'm like, you can head west. We're 9 hours away from Oregon, but then we had weather conditions.
Yeah, but ultimately everything works out for a reason. I mean, I did a complete 180 from what I was originally planning on doing, which was just went away to a place where I knew there wouldn't be any interruptions. And if my phone rang and it was a client, I was too far removed to actually do anything about it. So I would have to pass it along to someone else. So anyway, but it was also the week or two before Christmas. So there's
it was
a lot less going on.
But how did you get to that point to where, how did you shift your expectation? Because I mean, quite frankly, I had dug my heels in. I had dug my heels in. I was just resolved, like, no, I can see. And, there are some lines I have to be careful of by nature of coaching so many people in transformation and helping them make huge steps. It's interesting because I have this insight and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is a moment. And I could see it. I knew you needed this. So I dug my heels in, but it also created a lot of tension for us. So then ultimately we decided, you came to me and you said, okay, here are my terms.
I don't even remember that conversation.
I think I kept asking you, can I please just book you a hotel? Can I please just book you a hotel?
Oh, yeah.
Wherever you want, I'll just book you a hotel. You don't have to stay in your truck.
Yeah, which I wouldn't have done it on my own. And so if I haven't said so, thanks for doing that for me. Because I wouldn't have done it on my own. I would have come up with yet another reason / excuse to not do it. But you did it. And thank you for that. Yeah, but simply by doing that, it physically put me in a different place, some place that didn't have any disruptions. I mean, think about the last hotel room you went to. It's sort of sterile and generic. There's just, some generic wall art. So there's really nothing to distract you. So I went and I sat down and read. And honestly, at first I felt kind of guilty, but I hopped on YouTube and started watching videos from things that were like inspiring to me. Like, man, I want to do that. Like there's one person I found specifically who's like doing what I want to do. And like, he's probably my age. We had a brief correspondence back and forth, and yeah, he's a married guy with kids at home. It's like very similar situations, but this guy's doing it and I'm just sitting here hoping to do it. So it was kind of an inspiring thing that I don't think I would have really focused on had I been at home. I probably wouldn't have even done it, or found it. So by removing yourself, by removing myself, it allowed my mind to sort of think in a different way. So I think that's one of the big takeaways right there. But I was able to sit there and write down. I was at the beginning or at the end of December, week or two before Christmas, and I wanted to sort of write out what I wanted to accomplish this coming year. We're not talking New Year's resolutions. We're talking like goals. And so I just started writing it out. And some of it was like, I was kind of surprised as I say write, but I was typing it out. And some of it was kind of surprising. I just sort of let my mind, what's the term? Free think?
Free flow?
Yeah, for writers, it's like free writing or free flowing. Just let my mind do that. I don't think I would have been able to do that if I was in my typical home or, in-town office.
Okay, so that's interesting. So takeaway number one is like you were able to find inspiration and role models. There are so many negative connotations with social media, YouTube, the internet, any type of technology, and yet we can harness it to do really powerful good in our lives. And when we're intentional, and it sounds weird because you weren't intentionally looking for the role models, but you found and discovered. I think that's ultimately like our subconscious mind at work is like our subconscious mind is always, if we're connected, just always looking for things that are going to support us in reaching our goals. So two things real fast, just to backtrack, just to wrap up with a bow. Steve ended up going down to a hotel that we've stayed at before, and it has a suite. We did this and this is
we did it 2 years, well,
a couple years ago. Yeah, we can't keep track now.
Maybe it was 3.
I think it was 2 years ago. We went down to this hotel in Coeur d'Alene, and we had family that was staying with our kids, and we were able to get away for like 2-3 nights or something. And it was still the awkward stage during the pandemic. And so we weren't sure restaurants, and we just weren't sure what the dynamics would be. And we wanted to rest and just relax and catch our breath. And so we found one of those hotels that's for like kind of long-term, or midterm, or I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, it had like a little
a suite,
kitchen set, and like a little stove and dishwasher. And
stuff like you've got a little kitchen set up and all of that. And it was so nice. So I booked him of like, okay, great. You're going to this place. It's familiar. That was a big thing. I'm like, okay, when I was planning this, I'm like, okay, being in a familiar place removes distractions. So like you were pointing out, also the nature of a lot of hotels, they kind of have just kind of some generic, unless we're at a Moxie or something like that, or somewhere in Nashville. But most hotels kind of just have very neutral tones to them. And so if you're familiar with that, it's not drawing a distraction. It's not energetically pulling you in any way. And then I'm like, he's going to have a little kitchenette if he decides he wants to cook.
Which I did not do.
Which I'm so glad that, okay. I want to throw a bonus in here because we have your takeaways, but one of the cool things for me was you sent a few text messages. And I think this is going to resonate with a lot of the couples out there. You don't spend money on yourself. You don't generally like, quote, indulge. And no. I'm like, can I go get my espresso, please? Because I love my espresso. And so some of those creature comforts that I might enjoy, you don't always enjoy or treat yourself to.
Well, I just tend to I'll make coffee at home. Versus go and grab something.
Well, so I got a couple of text messages of a cool pint of craft beer at one place, or it was like this really good, I could tell you're having a good meal. And it made my heart so happy to see you treating yourself in that way and valuing yourself, having the adventure of going out and dining alone. Like that's a really powerful experience that most people don't often have. And so I just think all of that was really neat. And I was really happy to see that you were, just enjoying time alone. We all know I love food and drinks. So
it was good. And side perk is like that first night, I think was a Friday night, or maybe the second night was a Friday night, whatever it was. I mean, like the restaurant was busy, but if you go in as just one person, you just walk right in and sit at the bar, and I don't know, it's pretty cool. Nice little side perk. You don't have to wait or anything like that. You just walk right in and plop down.
That's really true.
Yeah.
One thing heading into this is that it wasn't just, okay, you're going to go take this time away. I think something that happened was that I was intentional with my communication about it, and you had strong intentions as well. And I think that's really important to point out, is that the intention was, I bought him Motivation Manifesto. I was
excellent book.
Halfway done reading it, and I knew this book was something that was transforming me significantly, and I want us to be on the same page. I'm like, got him a copy. It arrived just before you left. So I'm like, please read this while you're gone. And then you had some other things that you were intentionally working on. You mentioned your goals, but I mean, that was like my main purpose was I need to write it down. Like part of the mastermind that I've been involved in the last many months, really, renewed that whole concept, or the importance of not just thinking about what it is you want to accomplish, but writing it down and then reviewing it. Which I actually, as I was typing all that stuff out, again, I think I mentioned already, some stuff came out that I was like, where did that come from? Mm-hmm.
but it was real. So
So
I digress.
no, you're not digressing at all. And I think it's interesting because you joined this mastermind a few months ago, and you've been vigilant with tracking with, activities within that mastermind. And you mentioned how much the information that they were discussing, was influencing you in podcast episodes or YouTube. I mean, they have different things, information that you can gather, and you've been ingesting this. And so what was that like? Like, what's the value, in your opinion, of being in a mastermind? How has that shaped you? And how do you see that? How did you see that come out in that time away?
It was incredibly eye-opening. I mean, like some of the most profound stuff that we read or learn is like when you really sort of sit back and think on it, it's like, duh, like we all know that. But oftentimes we need that sort of renewal, or we need it to be presented in a different context. And that's what I think a lot of it is simply relearning what we already know and applying it in a new context to where we are in life. I mean, like I'm certainly not the same person I was a year ago as I was 10 years ago, as and so on. And hopefully I won't be the same person in a year or two as I am now. And there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, all these ideas are, I mean, they're sort of being recycled, but they're being put into new contexts. And that's, I think that's one of the big important aspects of a mastermind. And not all masterminds are good. Some of them are truly amazing, and there might be an amazing one that you don't really jive with because you're at different places. That's something you have to sort of figure out for yourself and invest in. So, but there's a huge value there, as long as you're willing to be open to receive it.
It's really interesting. I think for you and I, our investment in personal transformation journey really accelerated when we chose to join a mastermind together. And then that really became, so we know and are connected with so many of the same people. And earlier this year, I joined another mastermind. And it was a very niched down mastermind. And always, you want to pay to play. Don't ever join a mastermind that you are just walking into and there's no skin in the game. I'm just going to be deliberate. If you want anything of value, you need to be paying. And it's not necessarily because of what you're going to be getting. It's like we show up differently in life when we are paying for something. We are automatically assigning a value and a priority in our life. And that is not... when we're not having to put that forth, we really just kind of put it on the back burner. Unfortunately, that mastermind I joined earlier this year, and you've been very gracious with me, it served its purpose in many regards. I learned on the front end a lot of the technical things that I was aiming to learn. But in masterminds, for me, I always like to see strong community and engagement and interactions, because a mastermind for me is also a place where I want to develop not just skills, but I want deep relationships. I want to take those relationships to a more meaningful place, because we already have it would seem we'd already have an alignment since we're joining the same mastermind. So as you mentioned, not all masterminds are alike. That mastermind served the mechanics and technical elements really well. The community component wasn't so well. So I won't continue into that mastermind. And I'll probably look for something else. The other element here is that you can see, like, we have a group that we're together a part of, and we have our alone parts. And I've spoken about this on previous podcasts. Like, Steve is his own person. And I mean, I don't ever want to hold you back in life. Like, I want to see you flourish, and I want to see you like just grow into the best version of you. And I know you want the same for me. And I know we want the same, that like we also want that overlap for us as a married couple and as a family. So it's pretty cool when you start seeing, like, how do we support each other? And in supporting each other, it naturally supports us together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you have to work on yourself so you can come together and work together. I mean, again, it's like another one of those duh statements, but you have to sort of look at it in context. Like, you have to, well, what's that saying? If you're not growing, you're shrinking or something like that. Yeah, Jocko, he said something like, if you don't use it every day, you're losing it. So,
and you're losing it in a compound effect because you're going backwards. So you're going to have to regain the ground that you lost and then gain new ground. So you never want to be stagnant because there's no complacency isn't just stationary in one spot. It's going backwards. So it's a compound backwards effect. And we definitely want to keep that force moving forward in life.
there's always setbacks. So just make sure you're taking 3 steps forward before you take one back. That way you're still ahead.
I love it. So we have two powerful points that you've gained so far. You found some fresh inspiration, that mastermind that you were part of, and just working on the goals, engaging in that material really supported you. And then you were telling me, we were discussing this, and this is great. I'm just going to let them in on the behind the scenes. Typically, I don't tell people like guests, oh, this is what we're going to talk about. But knowing Steve and supporting him is like, hey, let's talk about this in advance.
I'm a little slow off the cuff, so I have to have some time to process it.
You're not slow. It's that you are very thoughtful and very, you take your words, you measure your words carefully.
That's very nice of you.
It's accurate. You are very mindful of your words. So one of the other takeaways you mentioned last night when we were talking about this was like, I didn't ask you to elaborate more because I actually wanted to like hear this live in person.
Surprise,
basically.
surprise.
It also could be that I was tired. I'm not sure which.
There's always that.
But you said if I'm not good being alone, then how can I be good around others?
Yeah.
What is it? What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I was tired too. No, I mean, if you're not okay with who you are, how are you going to be okay amongst others? I mean, if the purpose is to sort of build each other up and you're not working on yourself, well, you're now the weak link in the chain, right? And honestly, I don't know if I would have really been able to realize that a month ago. I mean, well, again, it's sort of a no duh statement, but it's true when you think about it. If you're not working on yourself, you're not okay being alone and sort of being alone with your thoughts and thinking things through, how are you going to be, uplifting and helpful to other people? Like, I mean, there's a lot more to that whole idea, but if I had to sort of nutshell it, that would be it.
It's really interesting. We've spoken about this conscious investor. I'm sure you remember some episodes where I've spoken about that we need to be okay with ourselves. We spend the majority of our life, 100% of it, with ourselves. That's the number one person that we are constantly with. And if we don't know ourselves, if we're not comfortable with ourselves, it makes it very well, I don't even know if it's possible to be fully authentic with others if you're not fully authentic with yourself. And being able to receive your faults, your shortcomings is pretty easy for most people, but being having the ability to see your strengths and where you are contributing in the world, that's usually a challenge for people. So I thought that was interesting when you were talking about being alone. I was also thinking that it just showed that that it shows self-respect, and it shows that you value yourself when you start realizing I'm okay being alone.
Yeah. Go be alone. Okay. I used to do it a lot, not for long periods of time, but in my younger days, I did that a lot. And somewhere along the line, I stopped doing that. And I think a lot of people listening, if you really got introspective and thought back, you probably did something similar in your own way. It's wives, encourage your husbands to go out. Husbands, if you have a significant other who's always saying, well, you're doing that again, evaluate what it is you're doing and what your motivations are. Is it simply to get away and go drink beer with the guys? Or is it something that you are doing to better yourself? There is a difference, and But wives, encourage your husbands to get away for like mental health, mental vacation. No, it's not so much a vacation, but mental health, mental growth.
You have to have that space to be able to incubate and grow, shed some exoskeleton, whatever analogy you want to use, but we do need that space in our lives. So, and if you're a wife and you're listening to this, or you have a significant other and they're resistant to it, it's taken 14 years 14 years to actually get Steve to take me up on this and to take it seriously. Actually, this isn't true. We did this when the kids were somewhat little, maybe about like 2 and 4. So I think he went up to Tahoe to the cabin for a couple of nights.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you have done this one other time, but obviously this is far more significant by nature of the books you've been reading, the mastermind you're participating in, and our intention together in our personal journeys. So
yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was. So I just want to say, be patient with your spouse. If they are resistant, it doesn't mean give up and quit. It also means patiently persist and, nudge the idea forward, present the idea. And yeah, I said, I drew the line in the sand on this one because I could see it. and that's different. I didn't do that all the years before. But I could see where you were and the opportunity and the potential. And I know where you want to go. I know what your goals are just from talking. And I know that takes space to really expand upon. So I'm really grateful that you took that time. And one of the reasons, the other byproduct of this that I've expressed to Steve, but I don't know if you've heard it because this is, multiple layers of conversation, is that it's a blessing to us. So it's a blessing to our marriage, and it's a blessing to our family, and it's a blessing to our community, because the stronger he becomes, it just makes everybody else stronger. So focusing on the positive of that.
Yeah. We both have to be growing. And I feel like I'm talking to wives a lot here, but guys, get out there and do what you need to do, not just to escape your day-to-day, doldrums, but get out there and focus on what it is you want, not like necessarily right now, but what do you want to be doing in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years? And, let your mind sort of relax on those thoughts. Don't worry about like your business right now. Like that's what you do every other day. Let your mind sort of relax on the things that focus more on where you want to be, not where you are. If that makes
Future
sense.
self.
Yeah.
Conscious investor, all about future self. We talk about future self often. Obviously, you can tell Steve and I talk about that. Like, go into the future, do that time travel, look back. What do you want to look back on? And start building it now. So husbands that are listening, you can see this is invaluable. So if you are making those valiant excuses, just stop. Just stop. Go get away, and get away with intention. Don't just go get away. Like, be intentional, be methodical. This is the book I'm taking. This is why I'm taking it. These are the outcomes that I'm looking for. This is what I want to see in myself. And those are just loose guidelines. It's not this rigid parameter. Steve wasn't going in to find new role models or inspiration. That was a discovery he made. And that's the beauty of this. You get to go away and you will discover parts of yourself and other things in life that will make you stronger.
Yeah. Guys, if you have not read Wild at Heart, read it. If you've read it, read it again. I think over the years, it's kind of become a little bit of a cliche book, but it's become a cliche book, I think, because there's so much value in that book, but it doesn't go real deep. It doesn't have to. Like, we're guys, we're pretty simple creatures for the most part. But read the book and read it with an open mind. It comes from a Christian perspective. That's okay. There's a lot of important lessons in that book. So read it.
I love it. And Conscious Investor, I read across the spectrum. Faith is central to my life, my Christian faith, as is, for Steve. But we read a lot of books that come from different worldviews. It really can be enlightening, it lead to new discoveries. It's really important. So that you don't share that worldview, don't dismiss it as, it's part of some weird thing. Just enjoy it and glean from it everything that you possibly can. And I'm going to encourage wives, and especially if you are raising sons, it's a really interesting book. We know, Conscious Investor, that I have all brothers. I've been in the male-dominated space my entire life, and that's comfortable. But there were nuances in reading that book that I discovered that I think make me better as a wife, and particularly even more so better to raising a man. And so, supporting our son in his journey. So basically, we're saying Wild at Heart is a great book. You should read it.
Read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any parting words?
No, just don't feel selfish for going away on your own, even if it's for a couple nights. That's nobody's going to miss you for a couple nights. And if they do, then you probably need to reevaluate some other stuff in your life. So go away 2 nights, make yourself gone for 2 nights. Read that book. Focus on not what you need to be doing right now, but where you want to be, like I said, months and years down the road. One thing I did recently was, and this was like an assignment through the mastermind, was write, how did it say it? Basically write what you are seeing, like the ideal you and your family life 5 years from now, but write it as if everything's already happened. And at first I'm like, this is a little cheesy, but it was really, really interesting because it forced me to look at things from this is how I want things to turn out perspective, not I hope they turn out this way perspective. So it's kind of a twist on what a lot of us think about, just looking at it from a different perspective. So
that's really cool, because then you're also, like, with that process, you're activating the RAS, the reticular activating system of your brain. So now your brain is already, if you're future casting that and you're looking back as if it's happened, your brain is already creating the pathway to create that. One final note from me is that with you gone, and I think this will speak to a lot of men who are like, oh, I don't want to leave everybody alone. It's interesting. C.S. Lewis said, I think it was in his book on grief, but he's talking about when one of the Inklings passed away, he's like, we'll never smile the same way because everybody brings something new to the table. And so the dynamics, the energy, everything shifts depending on who's there. And so if one person is no longer ever going to be there, it shifts forever, because Steve can make me smile in a way nobody else can make me smile, right? And this is by nature of the relationship and who he is and what he brings. When you are gone, it shifts the dynamics around the home. And our son showed up in such he literally, nobody even asked him to, but he definitely just naturally stepped into this man of the house role. And I hadn't noticed that ever before. And so it was like asking him to do things wasn't complicated or hard. Sometimes he already did things or was already thinking about things that are things that you would normally take care of and think about. And so it was neat to see him step up and, in a new capacity that he would otherwise not step into. And then, just how the flow of things worked. It was really lovely. So, you there all the time I'm speaking to you, Conscious Investor, you there all the time isn't always the best thing. Let people develop their own relationships, let people step in and have their own discoveries about the possibility of who they can be within that familial setting or whatever setting it is. So that means, mom, you might need to tap out, dads tap out. You got to tap out from time to time.
In other words, ditch your kids. Yeah, totally.
Well, we'll have to record another episode, maybe next quarter on, Conscious Investor, let us know if you want, some other episodes with Steve and I. We're doing some things with our marriage right now that it's pretty cool. It's new territory for us. And that I think that could be interesting to share with people as well, in supporting their relationships.
After almost 17 years, yes, there is still new territory.
Yeah.
Well, so that's cool. I don't know. And big high five to whoever out there has been married, 30, 40, 50. You guys are cool.
Yeah. Well done. Okay, Conscious Investor. We hope that this served you well. This isn't Steve's happy spot necessarily. He doesn't like being on a screen or things like that. So I just want to thank you for being willing to step into discomfort so that we can serve people well. If this served you well, please share this. Steve and I have a heart where we really want to support people in their relationships. We don't have a perfect relationship, so it's not like, oh, well, we've got this all figured out. It's just that we all need role models and inspiration and people that are stumbling their way forward. And nearly 17 years later, I mean, hey, it's working.
And that's being married.
Yeah, that's being married.
Seems like such a long time. 16 didn't seem like that big of a deal, but 17 seems like a big number.
Oh man. Well, it's not till June. So please share this episode with someone that you believe it will support and encourage. And please leave an honest, rating and review. Let us know what you gained from this episode. And let us know also if you want, some other episodes of this nature. Conscious Investor, you are awesome. And I am here to serve and support you in meeting your needs. So please make sure you don't hesitate to reach out to me. The best way to do that is go over to the website. You can go to you can go to julieholly.com. Keep it really super simple. Lots of ways to find me. However you want to find me. You can shoot me a message and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if you'd like to become a conscious investor. Let me know if you need support, through transitional and transformational coaching, because my coaching clients are just soaring and accelerating, and it's so exciting. And I love being able to help people unleash every potential in their life to live the life that they were destined to live. Like, your dreams shouldn't be dreams. Your dreams should be reality. I help people make those dreams a reality. All right. Well, until next time, live big, love bigger, and do great things. Are you enjoying this episode? Do the world a favor and help trip the algorithm by leaving a review so that this content reaches many others.